Hello, welcome everyone. I think we're live. It's so funny how many every YouTube stream. I mean, every stream I tend to watch tends to start with the person sitting there like, "Are we live? I think we're live. Are we live? We're live." It's almost like part of the motif of streaming. But hi everyone. Mr. Jack, light of my life, strawberry in my shortcake, is not here today. He is currently preparing for a trip to Sydney. So this today will be the last um, hangout we do before the end of the year, and I will announce early. It's always I just need to. I want to make sure Jack is back before I announce when we will be talking about the next Angel episode, which I don't remember the name of, even though Boris just said it out loud. My memory is a sieve, but I have other
Hi.
qualities, so we don't need to go there. Okay, me. Sorry, what?
Reprise.
Reprise. Thank you. Reprised. Yes, Jack is well. Jack is okay. He sends his love. Sitting in for him today is a person I flirt with slightly less, Lonnie, and I'm very grateful. But before we get to chatting, Sarah's going to run us down kind of requests and rules for the hangout. So go ahead, Sarah.
Hey, all. So, a couple things. First off, this is a spoiled discussion because everyone in the Patreon Hangout has seen all of Buffy and Angel. So, yeah, be aware this is going to be a spoiled discussion. Um, and then, mostly, we just want everyone to have a good time. So, we ask that you be respectful of the people in the chat and of the people in the discussion. No rudeness, and this isn't an opportunity for a thirst chat. We don't even have Jack for everyone to tease. Um, so, so nobody has consented to take that role today. So yeah, and then Lonnie and I, as Lonnie is sitting in for Jack today, will be moderating the discussion. So we know that it can range all over the place, especially in an episode like this. So we just try and keep things moving along, not avoid any trauma dumping or, going into areas where people might be, uh, you know, where it might be too much. So it's hard to give definitive rules on that. Just listen to us, basically. If we ask you to move off of topic, move off the topic.
Perfect. And I accidentally just blocked my entire screen with a clock. So give me 1 minute to awkwardly fumble and vamp about nothing. If we're very unlucky, it's going to degrade into a song before. Hey, there! Now I can see.
Hey, what would a
Um,
stream with you be like without vamping and screwing up technology?
that's fair. That's fair. No flag on the
And
play.
someone has to sing with no Jack here. The weather
Yeah,
outside is delightful, actually.
there are a couple of people asking if Jack's okay. Jack is definitely okay. He is just busy today. Um, yeah. So I was made to love you, Sarah. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, and we do in order to try and get us out in around 2 hours, which we've been actually hitting and staying under. I try and limit everyone to 10 minutes. I know it's tough, and I hate cutting people off, so but it kind of is what it is. Sorry, resetting. Sarah, hi. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty good,
Let me.
considering it is the end of term stress, but
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm a little scattered because the stream just started. But we're talking about I was made to love you.
yes, we are.
Where do you fall with this episode? Tell me about the episode, feelings about it.
Well, I really enjoy this episode, even though I like it represents some really awful things. But I think it's one of those times when there's something validating in actually seeing those things represented. For women, misogyny and so much of patriarchy is like this presence that is always there. There are so many elements that are left unsaid about the expectations for women, about, you know, the roles we're supposed to be playing, about the way that we are often treated not as fully human. So to have a robot actually express all of those things, there is something really validating in that. And like, yeah, this is the bullshit that is expected of women. This is the programming that our stories give us. And when it's April doing it, and she's a robot, but essentially she's a doll. She's like a golem, but the words in her head are the crap that the patriarchy tries to put in all girls' heads, and stuff that Buffy has been dealing with for the entire show. We've had this thing of Buffy being like, am I a real girl? This, you know, and we had the whole thing with Toth trying to split her in half. And like, this is her split in half. This is the girlfriend crap that she's been taught and that she was feeling she wasn't living up to with Riley. And then Glory is the pure sort of pure strength goddess,
yeah,
pure slayerness, and that there is actually something in between there that is real Buffy, that it's more than the dichotomy of these two parts, that she is a human entirely separate from those. And I think that Buffiness, that humanness, is most pure most represented in the scene where she sits with where she sits with April at the end there, and you know, offers her empathy. And then one of my favorite bits is when she makes the conscious choice, even though her options are terrible, she makes a conscious choice not to date.
Because, yes.
Her options are terrible, and because she needs to do the work on herself. Because one of those things about that crappy programming we get the programming that we're supposed to find a guy, and we're supposed to find any guy. Just take what's available.
More and more.
Yeah.
A couple of things. A couple of points of yours I want to connect with. The first of all, you mentioned that the episode is cathartic in the way that it represents the unfair expectations of the patriarchy, and sort of the ways in which that Buffy has been subjected to those expectations as well, and has been putting herself through those expectations. I think that plays in the episode. I think that's there. However, she does have that line about she does have a line that is sort of a carrying forward of the Into the Woods. I can't even say it without the frustration ebbing up from the ether. Into the Woods perspective, and the Into the Woods blame that episode puts on Buffy for all of that being her responsibility.
Yeah, this episode comes so close to acknowledging, because we get the mirroring of Buffy in April, we get the mirroring of Spike in and his stupid entitlement with Warren, and it's right there to mirror him with Riley,
right?
In the whole, when she talks about him leaving, but it doesn't go there. We don't get folks, by the way, when I said Ben was bad, I mean like he's a bad option, like he is a nothing burger of a boyfriend, even if she didn't know that he was.
At this point he's another Riley. Like he's very pretty, and yeah,
he's the boy.
This doesn't quite close the books on the things that for me are frustrating about Into the Woods. I think it is a really great representation of what you're describing, and I think that Marty Noxon, if as showrunner in season 6 must have seen, or I forgot who the writer was on this episode. If it was Marty, then there you go. But said, why don't we do a whole season on those topics? And season 6 is, and like the trio in season 6, I enjoy this episode more and more. The thing that frustrates me, though, is like, I don't think I clued in on that I'm cookie dough, hashtag cookie dough shipper moment that you're describing with Buffy saying she's going to date herself or to just be with me. And I think until this rewatch, I didn't really clue into it. And I think it's because of the damn cliffhanger. There's so much good stuff in this episode, but the shadow cast by the body and the decision to include the cliffhanger in this episode blacks out, all of that stuff that is a little more subtle, less dramatic, a little more in the details about Buffy's character and the way she looks at relationships and so forth. And my writer on this was Jane Espenson. Thank you, Lonnie. Am I off on that, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm 100% team Lonnie on this. I think cliffhangers are one of those ingredients in a mix that it's like a bay leaf. It's like the thing you should use the least of ever, because there are times when a well-placed cliffhanger is great. 90% of the time, it's not. It's just and it'll overshadow other things that are other flavors that we want to mellow on. We want to,
Exactly.
I want to sit with that scene with Xander in the windows, and I need to be alone with myself. She's a pretty great person to be alone with.
Yeah, a marinade. I wanted to marinate on now more and more as we've watched this episode. The more I realize I wanted to marinate on these things that you're talking about, and they just get blasted off the screen by one of the most painful, affecting, awful things in the entire series. And I mean, I don't mean awful as in badly executed or badly done. I mean, just what I said. So I don't know. It's an interesting episode, right?
And the body is such an incredible episode. I don't think we need to borrow from it for or spread it over the anticipation. It is an incredible piece of television, and we'll talk about it when we talk about it. We don't really need to bring in a piece of it here.
Yeah. I tried to devil's advocate for it, and Lonnie and I talked more about in that what the body is representing comes up out of no place anyway, and wherever you are in your life and wherever, it's like no one plans for that, no one can experience that. But I don't think that you necessarily lose anything by just having the next episode begin with that. And what you lose is not comparable to what is lost in the experience of I Was Made to Love You, which is all important stuff about, I mean, that might be the reason why Into the Woods feels unclosed at this point, because if this was intended to be the closure, the impact of it is so severely reduced by that finale, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah. And also, we still have the Into the Woods problem of, and which again becomes an issue in season 6, is we're still going to treat Riley as if he was this great loss, and not, and it's not a knock on him even to say that like that relationship was not a great loss, because that relationship was two people, bringing expectations that the others couldn't fulfill. And right. It just was not it had no foundation. It was not a good relationship. So we don't need to treat it as if it is this great love lost.
I mean, the nice thing about every one of her relationships is they all feel very of the time period in her life. They all feel very of that time and place and moment, and certain, she's growing and changing, and so the percentage chance of those relationships growing with her or along with her, or two people staying on the same path, are actually, it's tough. It's actually pretty challenging for relationships to live past, especially that time of transition. So it makes
And
sense,
it is
right?
an opportunity to have to commented on something, because appears to be Riley 2.0. He's worse, but he's because we know he's worse. But he appears to her to be Riley 2.0, and you could have had some comment her say something about, I've been there and it wasn't a fit, so I don't need to go there again. And I'm going to work on myself until I meet someone who offers something that is a different, that is a good match, that is a different situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
I really love the Barbie doll dress that April is wearing. It is very, I mean, everyone's outfits in this one is lovely, but I love the flowery, aggressively feminine Barbie doll dress.
I mean, I was wondering that to myself as we were watching. As she gets out of the car, her outfit is striking enough that I was thinking, did Warren dress her? Is that the interpretation that we have of that? Warren dressed her in that? That's interesting.
As a Barbie doll. Yep.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Let me go over to Russell. Russell, hello, sir. Russell, are you there? I'm singing. Save us from it, please.
Hey, Ian. How's it going?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm excellent. I always have a good time when we do this. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yeah, I enjoy these as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, without getting into the body, I think I agree with you and the other people that have spoken about this. I think Lonnie and Zara talked about it, but I think the cliffhanger is unnecessary. I think it could have worked as a standalone for the body.
Yeah. During the break, Lonnie and I were having a chat about cliffhanger. I'm not as anti cliffhanger, and I don't want to misrepresent her points. So I'll give her. She and I'll chat about that when we get a chance. But I'm not. I think that there is a time and a place, But like none of the rules that I could come up with where I thought, oh, that works, apply to this episode. Best of Both Worlds to me is probably the iconic cliffhanger in my mind that comes up for the uninitiated. Star Trek: The Next Generation, Mr. Worf, fire, and I'm not going to spoil anything. Dun 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 dun. But that is the same story. It's part one and part two of the same story that are occurring. And there's an argument to be made about the payoff when you come back to the cold open at the beginning of the next season, but that's a different kind of thing. This is not the same story. It's not the same. I mean, arguably the whole season of Buffy is the same story, but you know what I mean. This is not the Iron Team and Goodbye Iowa, which has a Lonnie makes the distinction between cliffhanger and game changer. There's a game changer at the end of the Iron Team where Maggie is gone. Oh, no, wait. No, I guess that is a cliffhanger because Maggie dies. I don't know. We'll get into that later. But anyway, Russell, I'm hijacking your point because I think the whole cliffhanger discussion is kind of interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, and ironically enough, I also was thinking of Best of Both Worlds as one of my favorite cliffhangers.
Yeah.
So Warren, a little bit. The more I watch this episode, my first time watching this, I just thought Warren got worse as time progressed. But all the elements are there. He is a scumbag.
All the elements are there, yeah. Well, we were talking about poor Adam. Not poor Warren, poor Adam. Adam playing what I would think of as Buffy's Joffrey, just the most reprehensible character that the fandom looks at and has immediate vile responses to seeing. And I think in this episode, I think that effect that you see a little early on is like Adam is a charming enough actor. Warren wouldn't be dynamic or interesting enough if Adam wasn't, if he didn't have that performance. And there are flashes of just Adam has charisma and plays the nerd thing pretty well in this.
Is he's still a sociopath, and I think I would rather team him.
Warren is not Adam.
Yeah, Warren, not
Yeah.
Adam. I'd rather compare Warren's character not to Joffrey, but Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah, I saw you mention that in there, but I wanted to hear your distinction. Why would you distinguish between the two? What makes him more a Ramsay to you than a Joffrey?
Joffrey is more like the kid we meet in the Angel episode. I got you under my skin.
Joffrey's more soulless.
Yeah, and well, more without a conscience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ramsay, he just has all the elements, the way he treats Sansa, the way, without getting into heavy spoilers on Game of Thrones, but the way he treats Sansa, the way he treated what was his name? The guy that he had taken prisoner.
Leek?
Yeah, Leek.
Reek?
Yeah, Reek. That was what he called him.
I can't remember the actual character's name.
But just the manner in which he tortured him, the manner in which he treated Sansa, the manner in which he toyed with his victims as he killed them. It just reminds me more of Warren and the way he deals with, say, Katrina, this episode, and the one in which she meets her demise, I guess.
Dead Things?
Yes, Dead Things.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
we're the ones I can and cannot remember.
Yep. And today I'm not doing that good of remembering.
That's okay, buddy. It's interesting. I like again. It's we were talking about James Marsters. Like Sweater Sniffer Spike is repulsive, and yet somehow James is just so good with the smolder that and the look, and can just shift gears and be charismatic and warm all of a sudden. He can just give Buffy a look and go, okay, and back off to the back of the room. And I, as annoyed and disgusted with him as I am, I go, oh, okay, he's not that bad. I think Adam does not have the smolder. Warren does not have anything close to the level of what Spike has going on. But there is there's I don't know. It even feels dirty to even be, like to support Warren one iota, or to I'm not supporting Warren. Russell, bail me out.
Please don't support Warren. There was an interesting question during our rewatch. Does April have a soul? And
I wanted to touch with the Star Trek team to talk about that. Someone responded, "Why does it matter?" And in the realm of slaying, it seems to be Buffy's line: a soul or a chip. If there's a soul or a chip, we don't slay. And there are various exceptions to the rule, how self-defense or what have you, and I do try and touch on those as they come up. But again, to me, they are exceptions that prove the rule. So where do you land on that? And tell me about April versus the Buffy bot versus, say, Ted versus Data.
Well, I don't think any of them had a soul. I mean, they're machines. And I might be a little offensive here, but I think the same thing about TNG's Data, and especially the EMH, the Doctor.
Well, the episode I kept thinking about while we were watching this one was Measure of a Man, where Data's right to choose his what happens to him is put on trial, and the Picard stands in front of the court at the end and says, "We've all been beating around the bush. The real question is, does Data have a soul?" Or no, the judge says it. She says, the real question is, does Data have a soul? I don't know if he does. I don't know if I do. But I think he deserves the right to find that out. And I think that is gorgeous. And I think that conversation applies in certain ways to April, Ted, and what is if you're someone who believes the soul is the seat of identity, isn't that programming? Isn't that some combination of biology and culture and the sum of your choices? Aren't you running a program that is your personality? It's just a biological computer instead of an electrical one.
I'll tell you this: the judge in that Measure of the Man, I would agree with her,
Sure.
and still given Data the freedom to continue to make his own choices. But that's the circumstances in which he joined Starfleet. He was treated as such an individual, going through the academy, going through the training, getting the promotions. He wasn't treated as a piece of replicators or transporters or any other mechanical
Property.
device owned by property owned by
Yeah.
Starfleet. He went through the proper channels as an individual. So I would still side with the judge. Would I say he had a soul? That would be, I would still argue against it. But that's just, I mean, these are fun conversations. They're fictional.
Of course.
And but more so with, I apply it more so with Buffy than I ever do with Star Trek, because I don't really put that much stock into Star Trek, but mainly because of the main character of Angel, and his show is about redemption. And
Sure.
Especially in season 5, Angel, when you deal with Spike and Angel. But that's why I put more stock into the conversation of the soul canon. No, I don't think the robots in the Buffyverse have souls, but that's my opinion. I do think Dawn has a soul, though. That was the other thing that was
that was fascinating. That was the other connection. There is Dawn was created this season, by a bunch of old men who thought this is what a teenage girl is like, and borrowing some memories from other people. So you think Dawn has a soul?
I do, simply because she's human. But I also think the kid in I Got You Under My Skin has a soul, even if he doesn't have a conscience.
Okay.
So a little complicated to explain, but yeah, I think humans in the Buffy Angelverse have souls. I think that's lost when you become a vampire, but that's just my opinion.
Well, and certainly soul is more relevant to the lore of Buffy than it is to Star Trek, but I just remembered the judge making that comment. I thought it was really interesting.
Oh, that he could burn Spike and Drew, and he burned that book vampire guy. Yeah.
Oh. Well, I mean that judge. No, I was talking about the judge in Measure of a Man. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of judges.
And I think I'm going to wrap up with just Spike.
All right, hit me.
I agree with you. Buffy should have dusted him. Harmless or not. Hey, what's the point of keeping him around? Or at the very least, drive him out of town.
Yeah, well,
I know that would have been the end of the career of James Marsters, and we wouldn't have had wonderful season 7 and season 5 of Angel. But if this fictional show would have taken place and these characters would have acted altruistically to their characters, yes, Buffy should have, at the very least, driven them out of town. That's just my thought.
It just becomes harder and harder to justify. And I mean, I think for me, the straw that there's many straws, but the one that breaks the Spike's back is in Crush, Drew killing the 2 people on the balcony and feeding one of them to Spike. Now, whether or not Buffy knew about that, or it was just a random act of vampire or whatever, the potential for Spike to weaponize someone else and his demonstrated ability to manipulate and control people, to me, speaks to, I mean, and at the very least, Giles should have done it. Given the events of The Gift and him, what he does to Ben, I'm very surprised that didn't happen. Yes, he has plot armor, and that's the actual answer, charm armor. But it's just, It's what we do as
That
fans,
scene
right?
is still painful for me to watch. The end
Yeah.
of the gift, but we'll get there.
All right, bud. Well, I appreciate you. Let me go over to. Let me go over to. Oh, Josh. Josh, I didn't see you sneak in. We'll go to Josh, and then we'll go to Sarah C. Wait, what?
Skip me. There's a kitchen appliance running right now.
Okay, let's go to Sarah C. Sarah.
Oh wow, I wasn't even done typing up my notes. Hi,
Hi.
hello.
Hello.
I what?
I said hello. I'm just mirroring what you're doing.
Incredible.
You could say I'm being robotic. It's like a
Yeah.
theme.
I could, but I won't. But I could.
Good, because that would be stupid.
Yeah. No. So I apologize for not being here for a while. I didn't have like thoughts on like this stretch of Buffy season 5. This is my prelude of like loving season 5, but I think all the stuff that's come before, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just find I think there's less stuff to really like dig into.
It's not as crunchy. I think that's part of the point of the lead up to this, but I mean that means it's not as crunchy, you know. A lot of people enjoy listening to Fear and Shadow, but I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, and even if like I don't not like them, I just have nothing like analytical, like, or it's not as exciting. Anyway,
Yeah, understood.
So a few small things that I think. Well, first of all, every time I watch this episode, I can never. They corrected it in the files that I've downloaded, which are the HD ones, but there's that horrifying weird green tint filter on the Xander conversation. That's a nothing comment. I just always see it. It's so weird. I don't know why it happened. I don't know why nobody fixed it in post. It just seems like such a glaring. It's weird. I don't know.
Someone commented on how that scene felt like filler for time. So to hit like maybe they came up short, or a scene didn't work out, a special effect shot or whatever. But it's just bizarre. That color correction is so off in that scene that I remember that scene for that reason. So yeah, it's pretty. But you say it's fixed in the HD version. The HD version did something right.
The files I have, it is not. I remember noticing because I was waiting for it, and then I didn't
okay.
It was such a disappointment. Two, a minor thing in this as well that I remember enjoying, and is one of those things that I'm like, man, I wish they'd done this more. Is that they have that when they're all like hanging out at the party, just a cute scene in general. But they have like Willow like check April out, and Tara be like, "Oh, looking at her ass," and I just think that's such a funny. A, it's just a funny scene, and B, I lament because again, everything is subject to censorship. But just having them, either one, like flirt with women or be interested in, or show anything that's not just like in the bubble of like their two little relationship scenes. It was just funny to be, Willow would be checking out a girl. And I always remember that because it's just such a nice little, like, it's funny. I like it. And I wish,
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. This season, you're talking about like, I really would love like more fly on the wall normalization as well. You're talking about just like, two people in love, having that situation just occur sort of organically in there. And I think there's a little bit more of that in this season, but there are also, you're talking about the bi erasure stuff in the season. There's also sort of, they get into fights that I, as a cis straight guy, whatever, wouldn't never thought about until I watched this show, talking about like, do you think this is a phase for me or a fling or whatever? And do you feel like that carries it all for the rest of this season, and do those moments ring true, or like
we're gonna talk in tough love? I'm waiting for tough love.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the big one. I have a lot to say about that conversation. I think that conversation is such a fascinating mess, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. That conversation is a hot mess. I love it. But yeah, I mean, that's a piece that's like really. Like it's interesting because it is whatever. It's realistic whether you want to like whatever angle you want to look at it, and I think there's just a lot there. But so there's that. And then as you guys were talking, I'm trying to go in like order of least to like most important. When you guys were talking about the soul and like, oh, could a soul like be constructed? I had this really anecdotal thought. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Kingdom Hearts and its lore. It's terrible. It's bad. Okay, it's weird. It's bad. I love it. It's bad. It's nonsensical, and I love it. But there's the concept of the heart in Kingdom Hearts, which is basically kind of like what Buffy calls the soul of the thing that allows you to feel. It's a little different. It's more towards like feeling, but basically the claim they make, spoilers for Kingdom Hearts, I guess, but is that people without hearts, because there's a type of creature without hearts, the body will try to grow a new one because it's like the impetus of needing a heart is so strong that it will grow a new one. So I'm like, oh, could something as complex,
Oh, that's
as
fascinating.
clear as April is, right? Kingdom Hearts lore is stupid until you start thinking about it and you go, okay, there's something here. Because something as complex as April that clearly there's that little spark. If that little spark is the soul, could a soul arise out of that? Because where does the soul even come from? If you want to talk like, oh, where does the soul appear with the fetus? Like what at what point does it arrive, right? Because this is all fake metaphysics. But I just think that's interesting. If we were to hypothesize, could a creature without a soul, not one that's lost it, but one that never had it?
Well, and that makes me think about, like, does a cat have a soul? I mean, at what level of complexity do we start saying something has a soul and something does not? And if a cat does an insect have a soul? Is it self-awareness? Sometimes my cat seems pretty self-aware. She seems like she rules the roost, It's an and then at what point during our evolutionary process did we start having what might be defined as that? I don't know. It's very, So looking at April, there's no reason to me why those conversations don't apply, especially because April is probably, from a personality standpoint, more complex than my cat. So finding those lines, I think, is an interesting discussion. In Buffy, it's a little bit different because the soul has such a concrete magical effect in the universe itself, and that makes the discussion a little more complicated, which is why I was bringing it up in the realm of Star Trek. But yeah.
So that is one of the few episodes of Star Trek I've seen, so I thought that was neat.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
And
Campy, but good.
My final note about this episode, which is the thing that once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it, is that from this point on, from his introduction, Warren and Spike are going to be paralleled until the end of season 6. You can come to your own conclusions about what those parallels mean, what they're trying to say, because that's whatever. But beat for beat, almost, they sort of tit for tat each other. As Warren is, the nerd who's bad with women, Spike, or William, even back in the day, nerd who was bad with women, it expresses how he's impressed with April. And I think it's when Sarah was talking about April and everything that she represents, the patriarchal constructions of women and et cetera, I think like we need to like really look at like how gross everything that April is like. I like not undersell it. Like, there's like some humor with it, but it's like genuinely chilling if you really look at it. And so Spike expresses admiration at this, gets his own, and those two trajectories are going to be sort of paralleling each other from, even in like Dead Things, but things that happen in Dead Things, and then the act of violence that they both take against Buffy when she emasculates them in Seeing Red. And I just think that's really, really interesting. I don't have a big thing to say on it other than when you were talking about James and the Smolder versus Adam and the way he plays. Exactly, right? Exactly. Yeah. How much more forgiving, even instinctively, we are of a man who can do these same gross things, but with charm and with a little, with a little smirk and and that's huge, because when we're talking about like how patriarchy impacts people, it's like whether he's attractive or not, or conventionally attractive or not, they're still subject to the same perspective on women. And that's what we get here, is like these two men, both of whom, whatever, could have been rejected or emasculated by women, or here's why I'm not, we could even extend sympathy to Warren because, he's young and he was a weird nerd, but it doesn't make anything he does less atrocious, right? It's not an excuse. So right. I just think that's
well, yeah, and I think
that's intentional with how far it goes. The two of them.
That's partly why this episode feels like season 6, episode 0. It's interesting how many seasons of the show have a you feel like the germ of the idea occurred in an episode that was previous in that season, and then they're like, why don't we go and do the entire thing? The one that gets me is the April experiences a sort of feedback, uncomfortable feedback when she doesn't answer me. And Buffy says, you programmed her to feel pain if she doesn't respond to the things that you say. Yeah, April, the things that he April's structure and programming is terrifying and grotesque.
It's and if you start to even like, you know, toy with the idea of April clearly April has feeling, we can call her soul or whatever, but doing this to a person, you know what I mean, like any sort of feeling creature is just, you know what I mean, like if she were to have a soul, or if she were to have some, you know, proto soul or something, right, the way that this overrides, I mean, again, the metaphor is obvious, but overrides this person's freedom and agency and binding it so much. She's not even a real person, she's a fantasy, fantasy in form, who then starts to be self-aware. It's tragic, actually. Like it's just encapsulated in this little episode, but it's tragic. And like
the thing that's interesting is like when she's dying, her reaching for hope in that scene, but she's reaching for it through cliche, which is a very childish. They're sitting on a playground, you know, and she's reaching for hope in her own death. Of the night is darkest right before when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But maybe that is the way that sort of begins. You know, she's a being that's been on the earth for a very short amount of time, and her searching for something to glom onto in that moment is identifiable, even done through cliche, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
Probably eventually in the next guide, but that's yeah.
All right, sounds good. Let me go over to Josh. Josh, has the appliance stopped making noise?
The kitchen appliance has stopped, yes, for the time being. There's a magical marvel that is happening a few feet away from me, and I'm excited about sampling it soon.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but okay.
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, you're not in a car today, it seems like, so that's good.
No, I'm like a real person. I'm in a living room and everything. It's amazing.
Tell me about the episode. I'd be curious for your Star Trek perspective too.
Well, so I think that they don't really get into souls or metaphysics all too terribly much in Star Trek. It's, you know, it's all very
no.
The concept of identity is the Star Trek version of the soul, and identity is a hugely precious thing in the Star Trek universe. That's why the Borg are so horrifying, you know, and that kind of approach that they take there. But like, to me, the point is just what you brought up. The judge, Captain Louvois, gives Data the freedom to explore the question for himself. April, Ted, the Buffy bot, none of them ever had the freedom for that. They never had the freedom to figure out who they were or what they were, which is kind of the point of you know, the metaphor that April and the Buffy bot serve in this season, for sure.
Oh, and Data tells his daughter talks to his daughter about the pursuit of meaning.
Mm-hmm. Data is a very absurdist character, especially.
Yes, he is.
It is the struggle that is most important.
Say that again.
He tells her it is the struggle itself which is most important.
Struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a positronic heart.
Exactly.
Or brain, not heart. I screwed that up. Damn it. Well, switching over to the episode. Mm-hmm. Likes, loves, dislikes.
I really like this episode, and one of my love-hate relationships with season 6 is how well season 6 does the heart, mind, spirit metaphor, to, in some cases, in my opinion, the detriment of the actual characters. I think Giles is probably the best example of that. But this episode, talking about being season 6, episode 0, also carries that forward. So Buffy starts off the episode literally beating herself up over her breakup with Riley as she's pummeling Xander, her heart. and just having this like anxiety spiral with her mind. She's ranting to Giles, and just like, oh my God, it was all my, Spike hates, what did I do to, and then Riley too, and she's just absolutely beating herself up, and then ends the episode in the green tent having a literal heart to heart, because she's talking to Xander when she says, I need to get comfortable just loving me. She's having that conversation, kind of with herself and with that core of inner strength. And so I really
Always-
like that balance.
I love that. Yeah, I love that structure, and I always
Yeah.
love when that plays out the way it does.
Absolutely. And I say to the detriment of the character in season 6, and the characters are not misserved in this episode nearly as badly as I think Giles is and can be in season 6. But it's just this really nice, kind of cute little thing. And especially the way that she ends the episode, like, I need to be comfortable loving me. And if we remove Xander the character and just leave Xander the metaphor, she's just talking to herself. She's having a literal heart to heart. And then, the decision to not pursue a date with Ben, like, I agree with what was said earlier. Like, it's just lovely. And it's, in some ways, it can be a very needed thing after a major breakup, a major relationship. Whether or not Riley was the paragon of floppy hair that the show wanted us to think that he was, Buffy cared deeply for him, and he was a very significant part of her life for a very long time. And so, like, coming out of that heartbreak, whatever its objective value, and saying, maybe I need to figure myself out a little bit. That's a fantastic.
It's definitely new, right? It's definitely making that decision to just spend time and be alone. To some degree, I talked about this in my "What Wild at Heart Means to Me" video, which was that I think that there is an awareness at some point that loneliness is not a disease. Loneliness is not an illness that needs to be cured. It can just be a part of the human condition. And for me, it took actually being in relationships and feeling lonely at times or any of that. But I think, especially if you're someone who deals with abandonment issues or whatever, there's for some people, there can be a desperation to cure loneliness or to be with someone else because to be alone feels incomplete, or the interpretation of the emotion of loneliness is that something is wrong, as opposed to I am not presently in the company of someone else, and I am feeling the ache for that, and now I'm going to make a sandwich and watch Buffy, or whatever. Right.
Mhm.
And it seems like this is, again, the more we talk about this episode, the more I frustrated with the cliffhanger I get, because I feel like so much of this interesting detail is overshadowed and lost under the crushing wave of that moment, which is a beautiful moment, extremely well done. But, and another thing about that cliffhanger, not to keep going back to that, but they repeat it in the next episode. The next episode begins with the same scene. Anyway, sorry, Josh. I got ranty.
No, that's what we're here for. I didn't mind the cliffhanger. First of all, I absolutely love The Best of Both Worlds as a cliffhanger for sure, and I appreciate.
I love The Best of Both Worlds. Yeah,
love The Best of Both Worlds, and I appreciate the audacity of this cliffhanger because. So there's a structure to Buffy seasons for sure. There's the episode 7 phenomenon. There's the episode 2 phenomenon, but then there's also this tip over into the third act that happens in every season, where we get passion. We get the body is passion for season 5. And, wasn't really there in season 4 because season 4 problems.
The game changer.
Yeah, but in season 3 it was probably.
Maggie.
Enemies.
Oh, you're saying season 3. No, I was thinking season 4. Yeah.
But here, the body it serves that function, and right after Buffy has this amazing emotional breakthrough moment for herself and with herself, the cruel, uncaring universe presents her with an opportunity to forget, ignore, or skip over this lesson. Because
Yeah.
she just decided to spend time loving herself, and Joyce's death robs her of that opportunity because she has to spend time taking care of Dawn. Which obviously Dawn stands in for Buffy's own inner child and has her own metaphorical place, but getting to that is the journey of the third act of the season.
To some degree, April is especially the ending on the playground the way it does, and her sort of spouting the cliches, life gives you lemons, make lemonade, and so forth. April is if she's a part of Buffy, she could also be read as a stand-in for Dawn in that way. And so I lost my train of thought there. I apologize.
Well, so if the Buffy bot is a reflection of Buffy, then yeah, I think April can be a reflection of Dawn for sure.
Yeah. Again, I don't think that anything is lost by. I think in the arc of the season, I don't think there's anything lost by the next episode just opening with this, as opposed to making it a cliffhanger at the end of this episode. I'd be interested to see if this came out during Sweeps Week, aired sometime in February originally, and if that was the impetus for doing something like that. Who knows what the decisions actually were, but the whole aspect of her wearing the same clothes for the third act of this episode and then appearing in the body wearing the same clothes the rest of the time could have just carried over without that cliffhanger being at the end of this episode and not allowing us a chance to reflect on those things. But I get it. I understand that there are many opinions.
Mine is that so I guess we'll get into the nature of death in the next Buffy
yes,
stream,
we will.
But, I grew up with short generation gaps in my family. So I grew up knowing 6 out of my 8 great grandparents, and I actually talked to a great great grandparent on the phone one time. So lots of people that I've loved have died over the course of my life, and no matter the circumstances that go along with it, whether it's at the end of a lingering illness or at the end of a unfortunate traffic encounter, it's never expected.
Sure.
And so I think that's what this cliffhanger gives us. And does it overshadow the episode? Yeah, just like death overshadows everything else he did that day.
That is you're talking about the by the way, it looks like it was Sweeps Week, so I'm not sure exactly where in February it is, if Sweeps Week is the last week, but it looks like that is probably related to cliffhangering this particular episode. I get what you're saying. Again, I don't think that anything's diminished. I also think that is the it happens that way in real life argument, which I don't think that necessarily justifies doing it in the story. But it can. So I don't know. I keep going back. Nice thing about these conversations for me is I often go back and forth with feelings about certain things talking to you guys. So I appreciate it. Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
The more that I spend time on season 5, the more fascinated I am with Ben as a little bad for the season. I think he makes a really great subversive villain, and especially functions really well as a dark mirror of Dawn.
Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely his symbolic place, which is clear in the last couple of episodes. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they would have been better served by revealing that earlier, if that would have just given him more to do. He feels so severely underutilized. There's nothing wrong with Ben. It just feels like there's so much going on. They didn't know what to do with him, or whatever. But structurally, I think he's interesting. I love the structure of the metaphorical structure of this season. So I think you're right. Yeah, with his place is a little bad. All right, I need to take a 5-minute break. So talk amongst yourselves. I'll give you a topic. Does Dawn have a soul? BRB.
Oh God, no, that's boring discussion.
Yes, she does.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
I mean, what is everybody's holiday plans? How's that?
Well,
for-
I tried. Good luck.
Buy in.
Have fun, Ian. Everybody's holiday plans? What's everybody's holiday plans?
Yeah, I know. Josh and I are going to be recording a special episode of Muppet Sex and Trauma, looking at
Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol. Does anyone else have any favorite Christmas movies or Hanukkah movies or whatever?
Well, Nightmare Before Christmas is usually more of a Halloween movie, but that is an amazing film and deserves all the love.
It is both. It can have both holidays.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
That's what makes it great.
I like bad Christmas movies. So
Me too. I love The Ref. The Ref is truly terrible. Like it is a bad, bad film. And I love it with my whole heart and I watch it every year.
Graph.
The Ref. It's 1995. Dennis Leary, warning, Kevin Spacey, and Judy Davis. So yeah, it's terrible in a million different ways. And I don't know why. I love it. It also has J.K. Simmons in it though. That's redeeming.
Oh yeah, that's always a
That's
plus.
reading, yeah.
Does anyone else watch
Um,
Single All the Way? The new gay one from on Netflix. It's actually quite
They made another one.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
poor
actually
The war
Lloyd.
costume.
Poor Jake Lloyd. He was just a kid, but that was such a horrible performance.
Oh, stop.
Oh,
The chat is mentioning Elf, Home Alone, Batman Returns.
Joya Noel is one of my favorites. It's about
Die
the
Hard, yeah,
Christmas tree
Die
from
Hard.
World War
oh,
One.
the original Grinch. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes, original Grinch. Yes.
And Shiera, of course,
Nightmare
is
Before-
trying to divide the room by saying Die Hard is a Christmas movie. So now
Die Hard.
obligatorily you have to get
Yes.
into that fight. I think
Every-
sure, it's a Christmas movie. It can be a
Have
Christmas
no
movie.
opinion.
I heard it described as a Hanukkah movie because it's about making very few resources last for a long time.
I like that.
I often switch between The Christmas Story and It's a Wonderful Life.
Very
Oh
much.
yes, it is a wonderful life.
I always enjoy Patrick Stewart's.
Oh, while you were sleeping. Yes, absolutely. That's one of my favorites. And of course, You've Got Mail, which is also a terrible movie, but I love it.
Night for Christmas. No one.
Hi.
We talked.
All right.
Sweet.
Bye.
That's better than my topic. Fine. You can talk about whatever you want. It's okay. I don't care. You just talk about what you want to. Let's go over to Andre. Andre. Hello. How's it going?
Good. The
Uh,
episode was more fun than I remember. So great.
What'd you say?
The episode was more fun than I remember.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think it's the body. I like the body so much that I don't quite remember this episode, so I sometimes skip up to the bodies. So
Yeah, I mean, when you know the body's coming, it's yeah. A lot of people really enjoy Eternity, the episode after the body, but I have the same problem with that episode that some people have with this one, where I feel like there's just a long shadow cast, which is a uniquely Whedon phenomena, it seems like, where some of those episodes are so transformative or so transcendent, both in terms of budget and writing and all of that, that they have a shadowy effect on the ones before and after. So yeah, it's a challenge. One thing I was thinking about was we were talking about how Warren represents kind of gross things, or like the way that he programs April is pretty dark. Every once in a while, the show goes to a place where I sort of struggle with, is this, when is something kind of no longer entertaining? Do you know what I mean? Entertaining is as a broad umbrella term for cathartic, exciting, moving, well, you know, whatever. But at what point is it just kind of so dark that it actually becomes difficult to watch? And the Katrina scene in Dead Things for me verges on that territory, where she comes out of the spell from the fake testicles, or no, that's the thing later on. I can't remember the spell that Warren has on her, and they kill her in the basement. Like, does that ever verge for you in this? Where's that line for you? The body, arguably, it could be one of those things as well. It's so heavy, so painful, so sad. Like,
I mean,
where is that line between like so tragic it's actually not watchable versus cathartic? Whatever. I'm interested. I'm just curious.
I think it depends a lot on the content and the message of the episode. The body, for example, it's gut wrenching for all the reasons, and every single scene you feel like the pain and the sadness from everyone. It's awful. It's heavy. I need to watch it with my mind ready to watch that. But I feel like such a great catharsis from everything that's happening, and so much identity with all the reactions that I could not say it's bad. There's this intense catharsis behind it. But then there's like the things that are like violence for itself that Warren often does.
You're talking about gratuitous.
Yes.
Is the line? Yeah. By the way, I would not say that just because I struggle to watch Dead Things that it's bad. I would not use the good bad.
No, yeah,
but I know what you mean.
Label,
yeah,
it could be bad or good.
Yeah. Just because I struggle to watch a particular piece of content doesn't make it bad. That's just purely my experience of the thing. The first top 10 list I did for the channel was called Top 10 Buffy or Angel to pair with wine and a good cry. And in my head, the distinction, the body is not on that list, if I remember correctly. I think the body is on the second list, but I don't think the body is on the first list. And the reason why is, when you get moody, I'll speak for myself because I don't know what your moody moments look like, Andre. When I get moody and I don't drink wine anymore, but I just am, needing a good cry and a big emotional poop, I watch Becoming Part 2 or Once More with Feeling or Wild at Heart. Like those particular dramatic, emotionally affecting moments are the ones that I reach for. I never want to watch the body. I watch the body in the series of the show, but it's not something I reach for in that experience of just needing that sort of emotional outing.
I think it's a different catharsis that you're searching at each point. So, like a couple of years ago, I lost my grandma.
Sorry.
And that's fine. It was a long time ago. And one of the things that I did after I got some time to process, I watched the body to, between other things, allow me to feel everything and to see the thing. Like I feel like when we're dealing with death or something heavy as that, you kind of always feeling like the way you're reacting is either not enough or it's wrong in some way. And I think the beauty of the body is that, and we are talking about the next episode, but sure, the beauty of the body is that it allows for all the different like reactions and feelings, and all are so valid and true and understand in the episode, which I find like lovely. It's the episode that made me completely fall in love for Anya, which I didn't like her up to. I mean, I like her, but she always kind of like separate from everyone for me. But
Yeah, you didn't have an emotional connection to Anya until that episode.
yes,
Yeah. I definitely think that scene has that's if I feel like a lot of times when I read about people writing about that episode, they're writing about Anya's reaction, Emma Caulfield's performance, and Anya's reaction in that scene. So I don't think you're alone there. Let me give you a chance to actually talk about I Was Made to Love You. I've sort of
Sure.
driven us completely off course here. Tell me about the episode.
So great things about the episode. Anya was great in the whole episode. I love her quips
She's
all the
so
time.
good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And it seems so. I don't know, it's the character or the way the actor plays, but it's so fluid. She says like the most random things. It makes sense.
Yeah, Emma knows. I think there's just perfect synergy between the writing for that character and Emma's delivery of those lines. She just knows the way Anya speaks, and the writers know the lines to give her. She's so wonderful.
Yeah. The other thing that I enjoy between codes in this episode was seeing the way that everyone. So Sarah said she likes the April gave her voice, and I thought it was interesting also to see how everyone was acting towards April. Like every other guy was hitting on her or trying to trick her in the most awful ways.
Yeah.
Besides like Warren being being Warren for no other reason. And even if you look in the last scenes when there's like her blue screen, it was all like the most awful things that Warren programmed her was like, oh, how to make Warren happy and like sex fetish and all the different stuff.
Yeah, I noticed there were 7 sexual positions that were in her top list of code there.
Yeah, that was interesting. Well, and sad to see, but needed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna skip the soul debacle because I think we talk a lot about that, and I'm gonna talk a little about the last scene.
Okay.
So the last scene, I mean the
swing set
park bench. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a lovely scene. I really like it, and it gets a little the soul debate that I think that Buffy says that her rule for like slaying is it has a soul or not, but I think it's more like a reactive. Like she never initiates the fight. She always like trying to deal with something. So you mentioned like the psychiatrist and conversations with that people, and she didn't attack him until like the end. But in the end, like he tries to buy her, and that's the only moment that she finally slay him. So
well, there are scenes.
There are exceptions.
There are that's always the challenge, whether it be it soul conversation or whatever. Is there are always exceptions. There are scenes of Buffy hunting and chasing vampires down. But off the top of my head, a lot of time, especially when it comes to one of the questionable decisions, which is the hyena guy in the first season, or the other Watcher with the glove of Minnigan. A lot of those exceptions, I think, are sort of excused by what you're talking about, which is she's being attacked in that moment. The hyena guy jumps at her and she just throws him over her head. And it happens that's into the hyena cage behind her. So,
never
that's interesting.
One in the basement with 2 vampires.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
Yeah, so on that last scene, I was thinking later on, was that supposed to kind of set us up for the body? So she's kind of consoling April, who's basically dying. And I love that she basically lied to April to make her feel okay, as a kind of recall to lie to me. So
Oh, I didn't make that
she's kind
connection.
of,
That's nice.
yeah, I thought, like, after we start talking about the body and like ending the episode of like the first scene of the body, was they like sagging it? I mean, not Buffy by herself, but sagging us up to be able to deal, like, there's gonna be a death, that things happen, or something like that.
Well, I think the line specifically, the night is, she's spouting cliche, and that is used as a mask for the night is darkest right before the dawn. And then things get their darkest immediately, you know, and the season ends with a dawn. So I think it's definitely foreshadowing. And I think it's a beautiful little piece of foreshadowing.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I love all the sayings that she was repeating, which I could imagine, like, oh, if I'm gonna like try to program the minimal ethics or minimal behavior to something, I'll probably should put like the understanding of the such sayings so they can frame themselves. And Buffy's saying like all the clouds and lemons, and finishing with the down phrase. I mean, it was a really touching scene that I didn't remind him at all. So great bonus.
It's interesting too. Like, if you have to program her to feel pain when she doesn't answer Warren's call, then the suggestion is that she does have the freedom to choose whether or not she does. You know, in order to build that influence in, suggests that there is a free will that she can exercise one way or another when getting at the soul question.
What if she was programmed to need Warren? Need.
I don't know, but I just kind of thought, well, I do need to move on, but I appreciate it. Let me go over to Henry Lee.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello, Henry. Is this your first time here?
Second time here.
Oh, okay. Good. I don't have much of a memory for names, so I apologize.
Yeah.
How's it going?
It's going great. It's going really well.
Excellent. Tell me about the episode. There's a whole bunch of points on the table. Whatever strikes your fancy, of course.
A lot. I've got a couple of notes. This is one of those episodes where you look at it. To me, it's like School Hard in season 2 or Angel in season 1. Like, you look at it, it's so hard to look at it in a vacuum. Like, you look at it and it's got, you can't ignore the body. You can't ignore season 6. It's like, I feel sorry for you having to write the episode without trying to spoil anything comes later, because it's like, it's so much is packed into this episode about what later.
It's interesting. Actually, my greatest access to that has come today in the rewatch with Lonnie and then this discussion with you. I don't think I've ever really thought about the episode. The episode, for one, by putting that cliffhanger at the end of it, the episode itself doesn't allow you to think about it in a bubble, which is fine, arguments for and against cliffhanger aside. I'm just saying, like, it has taken me this long to sort of compartmentalize and to sort of process those things separately, to be able to look at the kind of subtle, nice things that this episode is doing. And those will be in the video. I have no idea how I'm going to talk about this one way or another, but the video coming in 2024 will be I Was Made to Love You.
When I look at my notes, I've got a sentence about the episodes kind of within itself. Everything else I've got is relating to other seasons. When I look at this episode by itself,
that's what we do.
It's like, I think about that scene with Anya and Tara that I love. I love that scene, and it makes me wish we got so much more of those two characters. just by themselves, growing by themselves without related to Zandra or Willow, because they're the girlfriend characters, and having them together in that scene where they're talking when they run into April, it's such like a nice moment that it's just a little bit of character building that you just don't get in any other episodes. And I wish there was more of those two. And I was watching in my last watch through. It's like I feel like if Buffy was made today, I totally think that Anya would be into cryptocurrency. She'd be invested in Bitcoin.
I feel like there was a scene recently between two characters that almost never have a scene together that we commented on and thought the same thing. I mean, it's interesting, like shows that are so character driven. It's true of Next Generation. Every time two characters that really hadn't had conversations together before got a chance to talk about things, it was always such a joy. Because you love all the characters in their own sort of different ways.
Yeah. The other thing I've got with this episode is there's some nice moments between Buffy and Xander that I feel are like almost the writers trying to come back after Into the Woods with that just clumsy scene with Xander having that terrible speech to Buffy. And kind of just grounding him again and reiterating like this is why their friendship works. You've got that nice scene at the end where, and like at the start, where he's just such a supportive friend to her. It's like that's what I want from Xander. That's what he should be doing, not this horrible thing where he's manipulating her. Well, not manipulating, but like this like weird like mental gymnastics he's pulling to go after Riley. Just makes no sense. But that's not.
Yeah, today's the first time I've really thought about this episode as closure on Into the Woods, and again, that's because I, to be honest, never really thought about this episode because of what was coming next, and so Into the Woods kind of felt like an open, unaddressed problem. And I think you're right. I think that is a very nice scene between the two of them at the end. Yeah, I think that I and her deciding to work on being with just herself, work on the cookie dough. Do I have to use the cookie dough analogy? It's all good stuff. It just takes kind of making peace with what's coming next is all to sort of be able to process it out and enjoy it.
Absolutely. One, because you look at this episode and it's like season 6 is all over it, but what was really standing out to me last time I watched it was I was keeping, like with April, I was keeping getting reminding of season 2 and
Talking about
Buffy's
Ted?
relationship with Angel. Season 2, like season 2, season 3 again.
I thought about that. The Angel relationship is sort of the abandonment of all responsibility for Angel. When I look into the future, all I see is you. Angel wasn't asking her to do that, and that's a big distinction between Angel and Warren. But I think there's definitely some comparison there.
Yeah, because to me, April is kind of metaphor related back to Buffy. She's a complete lack of self-love and just complete investment in a relationship and driving the entire meaning of her existence into a relationship with someone else. So of course, when that falls apart, she just she breaks down. And I think that's why in that last scene where April was powering down or like dying, that's why Buffy is able to comfort her so well. Is she has that complete like empathy and understanding, like she's been there and she knows, whereas like any other character in the show maybe not, but Buffy has been there and she's grown and she's overcome that, and so she's able to just comfort April and tell her what she needs to hear as she's dying.
It's just so frustrating. There's so many opportunities then for her to tie that to Riley and to then there's the guy that may have been actively asking her to be that way and to be more of an April, and for her to make peace with and let go of the April side of herself, and to just say, I'm going to work on me. I'm going to be with me for a little while. But I don't know, that link, it just doesn't feel clear to me one way or another.
Yeah. One of the things as well, talking about going into the body, that's so tragic about this episode, and so like Whedon and Buffy about it is you've got that scene with her and Xander where she's like come to terms with herself, and it's such a moment of maturity in her, like the like adult thing, and then she comes home and sees Joyce's body, and she's just starts, she's like, that's the moment she's like, she just becomes a child again. She's like, oh, like just the complete lack of any kind of strength or whatever she's got. She just like the grief, and she's just so, it's such a strong moment of like she can come to terms with things and become an adult, but like these things can happen that she can't control. They're just going to strip her down again, which is so cruel. Obviously, so
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, in case it needs to be said, and hopefully it doesn't, I love that scene. Scene, having the body is one of the reasons one of the episodes I watched that made me decide that I wanted to talk about this show, and now the channel exists, and that's in no small part to the effect that episode had on me personally. So I'm not speaking about separating out that scene from this episode. I'm not talking about removing it. It has nothing to do with the quality of the scene itself, just so we're clear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I finished in my rewatch I'm doing right now. I finished season 6 like a few days ago, so I really like to get into that because I cannot remember this episode from season 6. Like you said before, season 6 episode 0.
Yeah.
The way it sets it up is incredible with Warren's character. Like whether this was made with in mind, we're going to bring this character back, or whether it was in season 6 they're writing it and being like, oh, we should bring Warren back because all the groundwork is there. But those themes of consent, it's like a one-sided relationship of somebody using someone else, it's just being there, just like forming already is so impressive.
Well, and I think Warren is an interesting character study. I think there's an interesting nerd culture is wow, are things different now than they were. Nerds rule the world. All the movies, everything. It's like that was not the case when the trio were written, and specifically, I think when Warren was a study. And it was a little more of the traditional subculture perspective, I guess, experience. And there's a very the trio are an interesting statement in that the fact that you may have grown up with bullies or as an outcast does not mean that you're the hero of the story. It's still about what you do and the good that you put into the world and the choices you make and the dignity that you allow other people. It's a complicated but interesting conversation. And I think that scene in Dead Things is paramount to the thesis of all of that. But it all begins here with, actually, I think that it began earlier with Jonathan. In episodes like Superstar, even if they didn't realize they were talking about it, specifically referring to the twins. And then the trio is sort of like looking at what happened with Jonathan and the twins and going, why don't we have a different discussion?
Yeah.
But it's challenging stuff. Initially with the trio, I struggle with it because I have an aversion to, haha, they're nerds as the punchline. I like nerdy humor, but when the joke is that they are nerds, which a lot of the jokes in a lot of the trio jokes on the surface of it feel to me, it kind of turned me off. But the more I revisit 6, the more I enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I love season 6. Like watching it again, it's like made my favorite season. And actually, I kind of feel like Warren might be my favorite villain in Buffy. There's something about like this character of how like he's just like a guy, like a guy who's just a dick, as being like the villain until obviously like Willow comes in the end. It's such like only Buffy could pull it off in that way. But
yeah, it that to me relates a little bit to that question I had of like, when is something just so hard to watch that it's no longer entertaining? I think Warren is an interesting exploration of that. He is. How is it that that guy is the most reviled? I mean, I know why, specifically the events.
Yeah.
But when you compare him to all of the supernatural, monstrous big bads of previous seasons, Warren gets such a large proportion of the dislike, and it's interesting, and there's something there for sure.
Yeah, that's why I find it like his relation to the Soul Canon, which I won't get into because it's a whole other barrel of monkeys. But there's a scene in season 6 that always sticks in my mind, and I just love this moment where it's when Spike goes to the trio about his chip, and he's like, Warren's off doing something else, and Spike is stuck with Jonathan and Andrew, and they're like, it's like a comedy scene where they're talking to him about like Doctor Who and stuff because he's British, and he's so like just sick of these two characters that he yells for Warren, and it's like the way Spike just defers leadership to Warren, and like for Spike he sees Warren as like he's the one that of these three characters that's like he has the most, he relates to maybe the most. Like
yeah, that's
a
interesting.
pure moment of just like Spike recognizing like what Warren is that always sticks out to me. I'm watching this episode and seeing for the first time, and I see in the end where Spike comes to Warren. It's like it always just sticks to my head.
Yeah, Josh
Like,
commented on the parallels, or no, I'm sorry. I think it was Sarah commented on the parallels between those two characters earlier, and that moment of recognition between the two of them, I think, speaks to that. That's really interesting. Well, Henry, I do need to move on. Is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
Yeah, I've got one last point about how April and Warren, to me, they're like an inverse in a way of Spike and Buffy in season 6, where you've got April is this like April and Warren's relationship. Warren is this like immoral character who April is like obsessed with and pining over, and he's trying to like, or maybe not season 6, but like Buffy expects relationship season 5 to season 6. And you've got Warren is this immoral guy who April this kind of pure, in a way, innocent character is like just going after. Whereas then you've got Spike as the immoral character who's obsessed with Buffy, who is like the moral one in that situation. You've got kind of like the same relationship with like inverted in a way. I don't know how to put it properly, but like there's the same kind of dynamic there, but like the perspective and morals of the characters are like swapped around, which I find quite interesting.
Yeah. Look, I love looking for connections like that for sure. Well, I appreciate it, bud. Let me go over to Boris. Mr.
Hello.
Boris, sir. Hello. How's it going? Let me reset. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Yes, and to all a good anything.
Yay.
Yay.
All righty. Episode. Yeah, this is a pretty good episode overall. There's a few niggle things, but maybe we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Obviously it's an interesting one because of I really do like the use of like the artificial intelligence robot as kind of parallels for other things. It manages to connect to a lot of the characters in kind of a neat way. We mentioned Star Trek and stuff, and like how you can have like a robot or a hologram or something, and like you wouldn't necessarily consider giving that thing rights just because like you think of it as an artificial thing, and you wouldn't necessarily consider these things. And obviously this is being used to like parallel with like women and stuff, and like the treatment in that regard, and how people will be jerks and stuff, and like, and poor April, even like those guys in that store were just treating her like crap for no reason, like just because like she had very peculiar interests and stuff. So that's unfortunate in that regard. And in terms of like Warren himself, we can broaden the sci-fi parallels as far as like you got your weird science and stuff where like
actually in terms of like the nerd culture of the time that's being commented on, weird science is a wonderful parallel. between Warren and, there's an entire one of the ones that I think of a lot is I think it's in Revenge of the Nerds. There's the when you talk about the nerd subculture and simply having a bully and not being part of the mainstream does not mean that you're the hero. That's kind of what Revenge of the Nerds was predicated on a little bit. It was that whole idea. And the scene that I think of in that one is where one of the nerds wears the bully's outfit and sleeps with the bully's girlfriend without her knowing it, thinking that he's the bully. And then he takes the mask off and reveals herself, and the writing has her go, oh, it's you. Wow, you're really good in bed, or whatever. That I feel like there's a direct connection from that 80s treatment of nerd culture to Dead Things and The Basement and The Magic Spell and all of that. And Katrina finally sort of yelling the truth through those tropes that needed to be broken down and fall out of the bottom of culture. But it was not just Revenge of the Nerds. Definitely Weird Science was another one at the time.
Well, even with Weird Science, at least like when those dudes like are kind of moving on, they at least are like, okay, we gotta tell this thing like it's over. Just like, but even Warren is like, I'm just gonna leave her in this closet and like not, and like that's kind of the thing with all these like science fiction things, is that like when you create a life, you gotta take some responsibility and like you gotta deal with these things. And
yeah,
because
just leave her in his dorm room to die.
Yeah,
which is like, what the batteries run out means.
Yep. Yeah, because like, wait, there's my train of thought. Yeah, because Warren views her as an artificial being, like he didn't feel that she deserved that kind of closure and stuff. And and then like internally, whether it's internal at this point or whatnot, like he's got that misogyny. It's kind of like he carries over to like women in general, and that gets really hardcore in season 6. Although the one kind of plot hole of sorts in this episode is like he gave April like crazy super strength, and it's like that doesn't really seem to fit with the misogyny thing that Warren is about. I'm not really sure that works for him, given what we know.
Well, sex spot and can open stuck jars might have been something that he was looking for at the time. Who knows?
Yeah, it's all kind of his thing. Yeah, Riley parallels were mentioned, and I think it can work for both. Like he can be both April and Warren in a sense, because Riley, he had like he kind of was like the perfect dude in a sense, like as far as he was reliable, he was a normal guy, and that wasn't enough for Buffy apparently. And that like, so you can kind of see how he was like what she wanted, and he couldn't like make her happy, unfortunately.
Well, there's an interesting parallel. The absence of negative qualities is not a positive quality. Would be I think I heard you make the absence of negative qualities for Riley, which is like we expect a basic human level of dependability in our relationships. If we say that we're friends with someone on up from friends, we hope and expect that we can count on them to a certain degree. But I mean, like, that April didn't have an identity of her own. She was defined by her feelings for Warren. And that was it. That was her entire identity. And I think that's the parallel between Riley and April, in that Riley, once the initiative was gone, had nothing. You're nothing here without it, said Graham Cracker.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of levels to these things.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
Like, everybody deserves to be treated, right and all that. And you should like, and again, as the episode emphasizes, you should like have some kind of stability within yourself. And like, just literally the fact that like, April dies because like once she realizes she can't fulfill that purpose, like something about her just like basically kills herself off, and it's unfortunate. Also, Andre in the chat was like suggesting that April, the super strength thing was because of was unavoidable in the way it was designed. It's possible. I would push back on that a little bit, because like at least with something like Data or the replicants from Blade Runner, the super strength was like very much intended because like to do like superhuman tasks and manual labor and stuff. And I don't really know if that would apply for April. Again,
Roy
these are
was
like
a
things
soldier.
oh yeah, the in Rain.
Roy Batty. Yeah.
I have seen things you people wouldn't believe. And yeah, so some elaboration on that would have been maybe nice. Other points here. As far as the cliffhanger goes, I'm kind of in the Josh camp where I'm like, I think it's overall beneficial to have this at the end. Because I don't know if you could really like, I think it helps to like prepare people for the body a little bit, because like just like just to know what's coming at the end of this episode, just be like, prepare yourself, because I feel like you just go into the body, which like granted I knew what the body was going to be about like back in season 2 because I got spoiled for it. And so like I think there is a benefit to like giving, especially like if we consider, especially when this was airing, you'd have like a week in between episodes to like give people time to like do what you got to do to like prepare for this, because it's going to get serious. And
well, for me that flies in the face of it, the argument that it was done because these things come out of no place and we don't get to prepare for them and so forth. More and more, especially now that we know the date that it aired, more and more I think it was a Sweeps Week related decision that unfortunately has ramifications for the experience of the fiction itself that will be lost to time. But I get what you're saying.
Although the thing is, like, while things will happen in life that we don't expect and we have to deal with it, like within the realm of like fiction, especially given like you have to deal with the body for like 40 minutes, I think it's good to like, I think there's merit to like letting people know what they're getting into next week, in a sense.
Okay.
And like, you got a little bit of like the unexpectedness with this cliffhanger, just like as a little thing, but like I think doing that for like an entire hour can be like kind of draining, especially since like that aired the same week as like Epiphany, and like Reprise and Epiphany were all in the same block of episodes pretty much. So it's like there's a lot of dark, dank emptiness going on. So it's just kind of good to have a little forewarning, I suppose. Yeah. So in terms of other parallels, we also have Spike, who the question was raised in the last episode about like whether he was capable of loving Buffy and whether that was real or whatnot. And that ties into how April is like, is her love genuine because it's programmed, or is it
good connection. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that one. The connection from Crush to you can't love because you don't have a soul, to her programmed interpretation of romantic love and what that looks like and so forth. Like, if she's incapable of any other choice, as we kind of interpret vampire mythology to be, is that actual love? And Drew would say yes, but that's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I do need to move on. Is there one more thing you want to throw out about the episode?
It's like two quick things.
Okay.
The other parallels are with Dawn also, which was brought up, like, artificial being, whether we should respect that or like blah, 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 and what's real and all that stuff, and whether it was programmed in your head. And then also just Xander is kind of like, let's say, basically like being all checking out people while right next to his girlfriend is a little sketch, and preferably not. I don't. It's a thing. It's the Xander. This thing has been going on for a while. It happened in season 3, and it's a little tiresome at this point. But I guess we can go over Xander anytime. But it's just it's there in this episode. So.
As far as Xander episodes go, I feel like this is one of his better ones.
At least
but
within like the Buffy scenes, they're pretty good. But then like when
Yeah.
he's just like, being all like, oh yeah, this woman was very hot and all that, it's just a little tedious. But that I can complain about Xander all the time if I want to. So
yeah, no,
I pretty much hit most of the main points. So let us continue.
All right, bud. Let me go over to Lauren. Lauren.
Hey guys.
Hi. Ooh, with the shiny background. Very nice.
Yep. So, okay. Yeah, real quick. Cliffhanger, I didn't mind it. Actually, it just kind of occurred to me. There's I know I've seen her name mentioned, Allie Box, who is a new Buffy reviewer. Who, God, she started like 2 years ago, and she's fast catching up to you, Ian.
Welcome to my world.
But on Discord we have, because she doesn't want spoilers for anything, and so most everyone in her fan community tries their very best, but she's approaching I Was Made to Love You and The Body, and it's like she said she doesn't want warnings, but should we give her a heads up? Because like she was just saying like, I'm so glad Joyce is okay, and it's like, oh honey.
No,
But
that's part of the beautiful
it is.
pain of the
It
show.
is part of the thing, and everyone's debating with each other back and forth. Like, should we at least say, hey, there's a trigger warning here? We won't say what it is, but the cliffhanger is the trigger warning for what's coming next.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I that's the first time I've heard that argument. Boris's argument about like, hey, heads up,
mhm.
for the next episode. So
Yeah. And honestly, what was worse for me, as far as cliffhangers that made me mad, was Empire Strikes Back, because when I saw Star Wars for the first time, it was being re-released on the big screen for like the 20th anniversary.
Wow.
So yeah, so this was, I mean, I was brand new. I didn't know who Darth Vader was, so my mouth dropped. But at the end of Empire Strikes Back, when it goes to the credits, my mouth dropped and I actually shouted in the theater, "What about Han?"
Oh yeah. That used to be when I was younger, that was my least favorite of the series because it ends on such a downer.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult, it's interesting. As an adult, I think the common refrain I hear is Empire's the best one. So it's interesting that the transition between the two, but yeah, definitely I felt the same way. Was what? And can you imagine what there's 3 years between those movies? Can you imagine having to wait?
Yeah, and I only had to wait a month. I was lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have a confession to make.
Okay.
When I first saw this episode back when it aired, 2001, I was 16 years old. I was I was young, I was naive. I felt bad for Warren.
That's okay. All opinions are allowed and welcome.
Because
all experiences.
When I was watching it, I took it as he was lonely. Like he was a nerd, so none of the girls liked him. So he made this robot. And then all of a sudden, here comes Katrina, a real life girl who does like him. And a lot of the misogyny stuff, it went over my head.
I think that story in and of itself is cultural commentary for sure. Yeah. But also, I mean, I made a defense of Spike in the last episode or 2 episodes ago, and his inviting Buffy on a date but not telling her it was a date.
Yeah,
I think there's something in the I think that's also a credit to the performances. Adam does a very nice performance, but I appreciate you sharing that.
and he does do a really great performance, and I mean, in real life, the actor is such a nice guy, and like, didn't he and Amber Benson date for a time? I think they were. Yeah,
they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
Talk about baffling the fan base.
but that's always, I mean, that always says so much about the actor when it's like you're playing a horrible person, but you are such a nice guy or a nice
Yeah.
girl in real life. I mean, like when I'm blanking on the actor's name, but Joffrey, like I've heard about, you know, when he was still involved and like he's kind of stepped away from the limelight, which, you know, good for him. Have, you know, live
Yeah,
your
I
own
mean,
life.
Malfoy is another one. The actor who played Malfoy.
Yeah.
I've seen interviews with him, and he says that he's been, you know, playing the villain, playing that, especially that kind of villain, who doesn't
Mhm.
specifically have a redemption arc.
Yeah.
Malfoy does a little bit, but you know, these other ones don't. You
Yeah.
know,
Or
there
or
are
they-
there are
yeah,
people who just don't distinguish between the art and the artist, and
Yeah.
the actor and the character, and you know, I feel bad for what they may have gone through in the community as a result of it, but I'm grateful for the performances, of course.
yeah, grateful for the performances. I mean, like, you know, we were talking about Die Hard there briefly, and like Alan Rickman, like, gosh, he was amazing.
Yeah.
And
Well, he
you
got to
know,
be like the difference, but I think the distinction between, say, a Rickman or a Spike versus these characters is they're cool. They have a power fantasy appeal kind of thing going on. Like, no matter what, Spike, you can put your hands on my hot, tight, taut little body and make me. Like, no matter how angry you are at him in that scene, he does that, and even I go,
okay,
go away,
yeah.
Spike. You know, like,
No,
there's no Warren scene that does that. There's no Joffrey scene. Like, though Alan Rickman has some of the most fun. Mrs. McLean, how nice to meet your acquaintance. It's all about the pauses. He's like a Christopher Walken actor. It's all about where you put the pauses.
Yeah.
You know, there's an aspect, like, even though they're jerks, they're cool jerks. You know, not so with Warren. So that's a different kind of road to travel as a performer, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but and as to the robots, do robots have souls? Did April have a soul? I don't know if anyone watches Amphibia, but there was an episode that aired not too long ago where the focus was repairing this robot, and these two IT girls who are like really into building robots and stuff, they say in like their blog, do robots have souls? And they said yes, anything that has memory has the soul. And it's like, interesting take.
Yeah.
And
For me, I think in this conversation, just the fact that she needed to be influenced to answer Warren's call, because she would have a choice not to, one way or another. The fact that she has that freedom of choice, to me, means the answer is yes. You know, if we say that vampires are all impulse and don't change and don't grow, and all of that because they don't have a soul, you know, then the fact that she does have that freedom to choose, such that she needs to be influenced away from it, means the answer is yeah. Also, if my cat has a soul, she does.
And I mean, yeah, I think dogs and cats have souls too, because you know there are people that they love, and there are people that dogs and cats don't trust, and usually their intuition is spot on. So, but yeah, and yeah, I did love Buffy staying with her because, you know, obviously Warren, you know, he ran off, and April was going to be alone, and I think Buffy felt that she wasn't just a robot that was just kind of shut down, and you know that would be that. It's April had feelings, and Buffy didn't want to leave her alone to, you know, die by herself.
Yeah.
So, and And yeah, there's some, I mean, there's some like good little bits. Like I love Buffy leaving the message on Ben's machine, and the camera pans and we see that it was Glory listening to it. And at first she's all, oh, what is he up to? I'm gonna find out. Wait, she doesn't want to date us?
Also,
Yeah.
I couldn't help but wonder the dress that Ben is wearing. That he can't be the same size as Claire Kramer.
No.
That it's a little tight on him in kind of the right ways, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is like that dress does not. The size. It's the old Hulk wearing pants question. When Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk.
Yeah, Glory.
Hulk should be naked, right?
Glory works her god magic on it, so she can keep these dresses.
Yeah.
But,
magic, always the answer. Magic is the answer.
Yep. Or like Lucy Lawless said in the Simpsons episode, a wizard did it.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm good then. I'm good.
Yep.
Well, is there anything else you want to throw out about the episode?
No. We're preparing for, we're gonna have the Angel buffer, but yeah, next Buffy episode. Yay.
We do have, Reprise is not much of a buffer, but it is a little one compared to the body, that's for sure.
Yeah,
and I can't believe we're getting there. By the way, before I go to Lonnie here, I think I missed a couple of super chats. Let me scroll back. I think I missed one quite a while ago that so far that it's not actually on the screen anymore. But
it's You Forgot Fluffy.
You Forgot Fluffy. I don't see it.
Yeah, I wrote it down when it happened, so I could remind you now.
Okay, I hit. You Forgot Fluffy. Since I forgot, we'll get 2 dances for that one.
The dance of capitalist superiority.
Thank you. Lonnie, can you tell me what the comment was?
Oh, I didn't write down the comment.
You Forgot Fluffy. I'm sorry if you're still here. Please drop a note in and let me know what you said. Russell.
The dance of capitalist superiority.
Overboard is another one that is problematic for me. The original Overboard with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell. Yeah. Amnesia and romance stories need to be done with a certain amount of caution, for sure, Russell. And Russell, I think you.
Dance
thank you again.
Superiority.
Not if Bill Bixby is turning into Lou Ferrigno. True. That one's a little bit closer as compared to MCU Hulk for sure. Thank you for the donation, Russell, and You Forgot Fluffy. I appreciate it. Lonnie.
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing, sweetie?
I have had too much Monster Energy drink. How are you doing?
Oh, good. So here we go. Yeah, I'm doing good. I've been sitting here listening. I always really enjoy these conversations. Every time I'm hanging out and listening to you guys, so it's really fun to kind of like be in the box,
It's a good group. Sorry, You Forgot Fluffy. If Ted has a soul, then Buffy killing him at the end goes against her mantra. That's true. That's true. Well, again, the other question too is like, who's the demon in Becoming Part 2? Demon. I mean, I'm not a bad guy. Whistler. Do demons have demon souls? Do cats have cat souls? And is Buffy then obligated to for a human soul? Yeah. Although Ted was, one could argue that Ted was a broken robot, but that's a different thing. Lonnie, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm glad we got the point. All right. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought there were some really great points being made. But I do feel the need to weigh in. I said
I was gonna misrepresent your point about cliffhangers and
No. Cliffhangers and game changers. Like, here's the thing. Like, if you like the cliffhanger, then that's awesome.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work for you, there are reasons why, and they are that cliffhangers are bad. Just my personal opinion. Cliffhangers are when you don't finish your narrative. And so you're kind of leaving things hanging in midair, and then we come back later and finish the narrative. So you're not finishing a complete piece of narrative. Now, the thing is, in I Was Made to Love You, we finish that narrative. Like, that narrative's done. But then we start the body. This is the beginning of the body. We actually will see this entire scene at the beginning of the body. You know why? Because it's part of that story. And then we shut it off in the beginning, like, and have that like horrible cliffhanger moment. And you were talking, Ian, when we were watching it, that some of it felt like filler, and maybe the episode had come in short. And I am curious if that might have been the reason why they did this. Although usually coming in short isn't the problem. Going long is usually the problem. So I have no idea. But the thing is, the reason why game changers are so awesome and cliffhangers are such bullshit. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do you curse?
Sometimes.
I'm not a classy lady.
Lonnie, please. It's a family show.
It's a family show. So game changers are when the world has changed, but we know what has happened. Like after Buffy dies at the end of season 5, that is a game changer, because here we are living in this world without Buffy that has changed, and you can't go back to the way things used to be after a game changer. Game changers are great because they change the landscape of the storytelling. Cliffhangers are just a moment of, and then you come back and you get that, that answered. And a lot of times they are both cheap and cynical. That's not to say that there can't be like acceptable or even maybe good cliffhangers. It's just that you really need to understand the value of what that is as a writing device when you're utilizing it. And I feel like a lot of times cliffhangers are used cheaply and cynically. So that is my argument. Y'all can come down wherever you want. And I completely respect the people who feel like there's a defense for the cliffhanger. But I personally, like, they drive me crazy. They irritate me so much that it is very, very hard for me to appreciate one.
Fair enough.
And that's just kind of how I felt. I joked in the rewatch that April was programmed to fail the Bechdel test. And the Bechdel test, basically, for any of you not familiar, it is the lowest possible bar. It's just that within within a movie or within a film, that two female characters are speaking to each other and the conversation is not centered around men, then we pass the Bechdel test. It is literally the lowest possible bar. But what it does illuminate is that, and it doesn't mean that if you pass the Bechdel test that your story is necessarily feminist. That's a whole different discussion. This is just like the lowest bar, and the fact that we fail the Bechdel test so often shows how in our stories so often men are centered. And I think Sarah had a really great point about how we have April being programmed to be like the perfect girlfriend, and that women are often programmed to center men in their lives, in their plans, in their ideas of their own futures, in their sense of their own purpose. Women are socialized to center men in that. And so in our storytelling, when it becomes so rare and so difficult to have two female characters in a scene, not with their conversation, not centered on men, that is a huge red flag for us culturally. And here we have April, clearly never going to pass the Bechdel test. Her entire existence is about Warren. And here's the thing too, not to kink shame, a sex doll is, fine. And like the idea that Warren made a robot that he can have sex with,
I was staying away from that question because, but I'm glad you brought it up, because Xander, it's very clear that Xander's dialogue suggests that if he had the expertise, I'm speaking specifically of I wish Oz was here, Oz would get it. If he had the expertise, which is fine if that joke doesn't work, but the point of that scene is if he had the expertise, he probably would have built an April himself. So
the line here is that April is programmed to behave in a really, really gross way, and also programmed to feel pain when she doesn't submit to his will.
Right.
That gross, terrible, awful, bad. The sex doll, whatever, right? You know,
Yeah,
like
there's a separation there.
let's have a separation there, because some of it is not necessarily morally repugnant. But Warren, because of the way that he built this doll, and this is the thing too that I find really interesting, is that there are certain feminine ideals that women who are, you know, raised as women, socialized as women, do come up against in what they feel that they should be, or the ways in which they feel that they are failing, or they are told societally that they are failing by not being thin enough, not being pretty enough, not being compliant enough, not wanting sex enough, not supporting their man, stand by your man, all of that nonsense, right? So we have all of these ways in which women, you know, are told that this is the way that they should be. And here we have April being everything, like representing the ideal, if not the real, right? And then Katrina is the real. So we see Warren choosing Katrina, which would make you think, okay, like he wants reality. He wants a woman who is going to, and let's not fool ourselves, Katrina also matches all of those idealized like feminine virtues or whatever as well. But she's got sass, you know,
Right.
like she'll tell him no. And so that is her great virtue, like standing up. And then he, you know, was all like, yeah, when I had this ideal woman, I didn't want her. So again, to be like, okay, ladies, here are all the ideals that you need to chase. And then if you actually manage to achieve all of these unachievable ideals, Warren will reject you. Warren, you know, you can't even get Warren. And that is if you do everything, quote unquote, right. So I think that part of what I love about this episode is that it does open up a space for us to actually like really have that conversation, which I think is incredibly valuable. And then we have this, like, we end in this place where these women are fighting over Warren, you know, Katrina, who is, I don't like to think of people and their value in terms of leagues, because I feel like that's pretty terrible. So forgive me for saying that Katrina is so far out of Warren's league, I don't even know what's going on there. But here we have these women fighting each other while Warren walks away with nary a slap in the face, right?
Right.
Like, you know, Katrina's ribs are cracked. You know, she's wandering off in pain with her prize, which again, let's just say for the back, is Warren. And then Buffy and April are fighting, and then April gets weak and sits down and dies. And in that moment, we have this incredibly like redemptive moment where these two women, or robot as woman, right, are communing in this incredibly human moment where Buffy is sitting with April, walking her through her existential dread and then her death, and making space to make April feel better, to comfort her. You know, I mean, when you think about the fact, like, Ian often makes fun of me because I say thank you to the Google bot. I'm just saying, I think that there's something incredibly human in creating a space. Whether or not April has a soul, I think is a question that is a really interesting question to ask, a much, much harder question to answer. But it is the soul in us that speaks to what may or may not be a soul in others. And that moment of empathy and compassion and connection between these two women when Warren left and was finally gone, I think is just an incredibly beautiful and touching moment. And the idea of creating space for the soul in others, whether or not you can prove that it exists, speaks to our own souls and speaks to our own humanity. And I just thought that was beautiful. I just like that a lot.
Also, I think she does ask the question, "What is my function if not this?" And I think
Right.
that just asking the question is more evidence of pursuing the answer, and that's the basic test of self awareness that
Yeah.
that I started or when we were talking early on in Measure of a Man. So yeah, interesting episode. Is there anything else you want to throw out about that one?
I'm all done. Thank you very much for letting me sit in. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I forgot how to do the buttons and things and stuff. All right, everyone, thank you so much. We're gonna take a break until January. I will post on Patreon when the next discussion is. It's for reprise. Oh, Lonnie, I forgot to ask you in during the rewatch. Where can people see more of you? Promote yourself, please. Twitter handle,
hi.
anything.
Yes,
What do you
for
do?
anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Lonnie Diane Rich. You can find me at Chipperish Media, where I have a lot of podcasts. And also I have a book, How Story Works, which is coming out in January. Thank you to Sarah for reminding me to promote. You can go to LonnieDianeRich.com and find out anything you want to find out about me.
Thank you. And Sarah, it looked like there was something you wanted to say.
Yeah, super quick because I know
Okay.
it was in the middle of when you were talking, Lonnie. I had so many things, but like I'm sure you know, but like what's so interesting about the Bechdel test, it wasn't even like, oh, how feminist is this? It was developed to see like how likely would a lesbian relationship be if women literally don't even talk to each other about anything else that's not a man. So like that's where it started, and it's like often cited as like how feminist is this or whatever, but it was literally
thank
just, like,
you so much for that context.
yeah, because like Alison Bechdel was like, she wrote a bunch of like, she was a lesbian cartoonist and writer, but that's it's named after her. And it was like, this is why like there's a lot of like lesbian like slash stuff for like women who don't even interact because they're not even given that time to interact with each other. So that's all.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that context. I appreciate that because I do talk about that from time to time, and having that how often, the queer element is just erased from so many of these discussions is really, like upsetting. So thank you very much. I appreciate that context.
All right. Well, everyone have a good holiday. And the videos there will be a new video in January. I hope you enjoyed the last one. We'll see you in January. Bye.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
January. Happy holidays.
Okay. Is this it? Are we done?
Not yet.
Do you need me hold it up? Are we still on?
No, you can end it.
I can end it now? All right.
Thank you.